Hey, what's up, guys? Jag from Jaggy Sports again, and let's get to it. Before we get to it, we're gonna say the magic words. You already know what to do. So here's the deal: um, should the should the Lakers fire Frank Vogel? Um, they are on the brink of missing the playoffs. Last night, the Raptors were up 18-2 or something like that, and I have to hear it from my mailman every single day. When he delivers the mail, he reminds me of how much the Raptors are better than the Lakers. Yeah, I hope to God that one day I can say something back at him, but I can't because the Lakers suck. They are just seem so disinterested in this entire process. And you have to think to yourself, they are just waiting till the season is over because they are not listening to Frank Vogel at all. In fact, Frank Vogel has lost the respect of the players. The players are lashing out at him. Just ask Russell Westbrook that one right there. And last night, LeBron James was clearly upset, and rightfully so, because nobody was rebounding the damn basketball. So my question is, should the Lakers fire Frank Vogel?
LeBron's playing a lot of minutes, and they keep losing, Stephen A. Is it time to sit LeBron?
No. It's time for something else. Monica, I take no pleasure in saying this. It's time for Frank Vogel to go. He has to go as head coach of this franchise. It's time to put him out of his misery. It's time to put LeBron James out of his misery. It's not that they're losing. If you're scratching and clawing, it's nip and tuck, but we're able to point to injuries, that would be different. That's not what's going on here with the Los Angeles Lakers. We're seeing a level of inefficiency, a level of ineptitude, a lack of spirit. It's like these guys don't know what it means to be Lakers. It's Frank Vogel's responsibility to overcome that. It's not his fault, ladies and gentlemen, as it pertains to this roster and the position that they put him in. I'm not saying that Frank Vogel doesn't deserve to be a head coach in the National Basketball Association, but I've seen coaches facing arduous circumstances with a roster that performed much better than he's done as a coach. LeBron James is your star. You can lose games. You don't have to be 10 games under 500. You don't have to give up 48 points in the first quarter and then follow that up by getting outscored 26-4 to start a game. There's no spirit. There's no enthusiasm. There is nothing. The Lakers are a shell of themselves. At this particular moment in time, it's embarrassing to watch this team. My man Michael Wilbon for PTI, it's gotten to a point where we've had to restrain Michael Wilbon, one of the nicest guys on the planet.
He's the best.
We've had to restrain him from saying stuff that ain't suitable for FCC airwaves. The veteran, the godfather, we got to coach him to restrain from going the hell off because he has a problem with the Lakers being on national television. Michael Wilbon, the nicest guy in the business. This dude doesn't even believe the Lakers deserve to be on national TV. I'm talking the NBA package. He doesn't believe they deserve to be a part of that. That's how atrocious they have been. Frank Vogel doesn't play. What's your job? You got to figure it out, bro. And what I mean by that, Eminem, you're the 27th ranked defense in points allowed. The reason Frank Vogel is a coach is because his signature is defense. He was an outstanding coach in Indiana because they were one of the elite defensive teams. The Lakers last year were number 1. They're like now at 18th or 19th in defensive efficiency and 27th in points allowed. It is a horror show. And every day that, look, even though I don't believe that LeBron should sit down because he's a part of this mess because he wanted Russell Westbrook, you do have people upstairs with Phil Jackson paying a visit these days, bad hips and all. This brother sitting up there, and you're hearing that, it ain't really Russell Westbrook's fault. It's a mess. You got management blaming coaches. You got players blaming coaches. You got coaches blaming management. It's a mess. Just a mess. Frank Vogel has to go because most of those players going to be back next year. And if you couldn't coach them this year, what the hell are you going to do next year? That's where I'm at. I'm sorry. I like a man. I think he deserves to be a head coach. I'm not saying get rid of him because he's terrible. I'm saying this situation is too excruciating to stomach any longer. They still got a shot at the play-in. Frank Vogel got to go, Eminem. He's got to go. Put him out of his misery is what I'm saying. Put him out of his misery.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong. And the most important part of what you just said is that the Lakers are in a tough spot in that this roster probably doesn't change much next year. It's unfortunate because it is not Frank Vogel's fault in my mind when you have the opportunity to play alongside, or to coach rather, a guy named LeBron James, who just recently created a whole separate category for himself in the NBA in terms of what he's accomplished, reaching the 10,000 mark in 3 categories. It would seem that competitive interest and enthusiasm would be something that you would not question. But there is no doubt that the Lakers are in utter despair. Every time they come across TV, I'm like, this legitimately looks like an SNL skit. A mess. And so I understand where you're coming from, but in the here and now, if management, and assuming that Frank Vogel didn't become the Lakers head coach without the blessing of the star that we just mentioned, to me, I don't know if it's a better play, but to the question of whether or not LeBron should sit the rest of the season, I am inclined to say yes, because whether Frank Vogel is still a part of the Lakers organization next year or not, LeBron James has been honest about wanting to finish his career there, and therefore, at this point, we're not even dealing with this year's play-in. Should we win 2 games in the play-in and they get bounced in the first round series, okay, so what? We're now talking about the opportunity to put the Lakers back where Lakers fans and that organization and LeBron James expects them to be in terms of a team that is competing for winning real and meaningful games. And so if that happens to Vogel, whether that does or doesn't, I still think that LeBron James should sit he should rest the rest of the season because it's all for naught.
Now, I think they should fire Frank Vogel. Not that he deserves it. I'm just saying, I said this in December. They should let him go because they're not listening to him. I know they don't play any defense. I know they can't play any defense, but they could try, right? They could, seem interested. But it just, when you have Frank Vogel trying to persuade them to, do better here and there, and they're not doing that, and they're basically just sitting out there doing anything, just running around. That's all they're doing, just running around. And one of the Lakers are losing. It's one thing if you don't have the skill, but it's another thing if you don't put in the effort. And quite frankly, you have to admit that they are showing signs of no effort. Terrible situation if you are part of the Lakers organization or a fan base like myself. It's incredibly bad. Organization is just head to toe. It's mind-boggling, and they should take notes from the Clippers because the Clippers have a great organization from head to toe, including coaching staff, Jerry West, and Jerry West said when Kawhi entered the conversation to go either to the Lakers or the Clippers, and Jerry West basically said, why would he want to go to that beep show? And they won the title that year, but he was actually right. You're right. Like, so it's just kind of like, just, it's a sad state of affairs, but they got to let him go. They have to let Frank Vogel go. Tell me what you guys' thoughts are. I know a lot of people don't want to say fire somebody, lose their job, lose family, food for their family, but I'm sure he's going to find another job elsewhere. I don't want to say that. I'm just saying it's time for him to go. Most likely that they will fire him at the end of the season. And yeah, tell me what your thoughts are. Should should Lakers fire Frank Vogel? That's the question. To fire or to not to fire? That is the question. Leave me a comment section. Jag from Jag Sports.